we went through this process after the first movement of coding 90 plus hours of dialogues and many pages of notes that people from around the world had submitted to us about the things that were moving and concerning them, and the things that were giving them hope, and the things that felt possible now that didn't feel possible before, and things that felt important and critical now that we hadn't even thought about doing before. And so we're going to share a little kind of some artifacts from that first movement as we transition into the second. And we're going to read something that we've called The Story of Our Time, which is about the harmonies and dissonances that we heard around the world. So if you want to keep your eyes closed or you want to look away from the screen, this is also a good time to do it. It's a part one of a story. Where is there harmony and dissonance around the world? The world as we know it is changing. Most of the people we are speaking to have a newfound sense of interconnectedness, reliant on each other and vulnerable to each other in equal measure. This new way of understanding the world has led to an increase in the language of systems and collective power. One thing affects the other and the other affects the next. That's something that Mitch Albom wrote in a short novel called 5 People You Meet in Heaven, which is about this quiet maintenance man in a fairground who is shown a vision about his small actions impacted, even saved the lives of generations to come. Impact for generations to come. Really, we found that people are reorganizing at global and local levels, and often at the intersection between the two. This is causing a great deal of disruption, of course, to everything we used to take for granted. Think local, act global rings the latest protest slogans. Finding new and strengthening existing ways to cooperate is not intuitive or easy to do, even if this has been at the heart of social innovation for the past decade. Still, somehow we have found in the midst of many different kinds of disruptions, in many different places around the world, an incredible resilience and a capacity we didn't even know we had for agility, adaptability, and action. But some days are harder than others to swallow the paradoxes, holding the plain as day positive and negative qualities in every fragile, beautiful moment. We heard stories from several sources of corruption, racism, and fatigue. People are burning out, people are grieving and scared. The boundaries between our home and our work lives are blurring. We need to learn to integrate, not balance, sighed one of the dine around participants. We need to maintain a sense of urgency, a force that has kicked so much out and so much else into gear. And somehow we also need to find time to pause, reflect, act with presence of mind, with foresight, and with a new humility as we sense the magnitude of our very own blind spots. Who have we left behind? Where are we perpetuating differences? Whose perspective? Whose power? We ask of the pandemic, is this an event or is this an era? Many people are opposed to the idea of returning to normal. Nothing good to go back to, they said. But as we face the climate crisis, we also wonder how much time do we have left? We are living in times of chronic uncertainty, as a friend of 6 reminded us. But one thing is for sure, what got us into this mess is not what is going to get us out of it. So sung the chorus of history. Okay, we must focus on the how now, especially because by now we are intimately acquainted with the why. The challenges are many and they are big. Most of our days are now submerged in digital space. We have become dependent on tech like we never knew before. And with that quiet appreciation is also an exasperation, a growing sense of the neglect of responsibility from all those we were assumed to trust. How can we cultivate digital well-being if we, the technologically privileged, are fast becoming digital citizens? Who will write the new social contract? The new social contract. Okay, people are finding hope in the small and informal and everyday actions, the familiarity and reliability of local groups, messy, noisy, and very human though they are. And as the saying goes, change moves at the speed of trust. Building relationships, being active members of our communities, playing our part as informed, engaged citizens is where most people feel meaningful change is possible. And the general feeling is that there is no better time than now for cultivating new economic models around sustainability, social well-being, circularity, as well as new structures, policies, practices, even norms around how we organize and govern, how we live together, learn together, how we care for one another. But this all requires an entirely new way of thinking and behaving, a new form of awareness, a new story. As one friend from the Skonan First Nation told us, with all the bravery and brilliance of Indigenous lineage, our theory of change is this: documenting our ways of knowing, being, feeling, doing. The role of art, therefore, becomes the unsung hero, the translating force, the medium for pushing social critique. Art can connect the intimate and systemic in a really unique way. Yes, but what is your metric of success? What are the numbers behind this? A local artist asked us once that first movement was done, and it was a funny question, a blast from the past. After dozens of global conversations, 90 plus hours of dialogue that we and others have hosted, after reading, synthesizing, abstracting, understanding 75 plus pages of notes, not to mention the legacy of a decade behind us, how do you measure global social change in numbers? We asked back. How do you measure the difference between just surviving or truly thriving? And then the artist suddenly remembered his own aching questions, squashed down over time by funders and frameworks. Art is transformative. We try to be rational with facts and figures, but if our task is to go mainstream, we have to deliver transformative experiences. But can you measure this? The value of art? And if you can, should you? And if you should, will more of us step into the role of the artist? Will we be prepared to make and to measure what matters? So that was the story of our time.